Hey, welcome to Metal Sharpens Metal. My name is Daniel. Today we have the song Dichotomy by Becoming the Archetype. They've been around for a little while. I'm not saying anybody's old here, but they have been in the game for a number of years and they continue to kill it. Actually, they put out a new album last year, so this one is not from that, but it's one of my favorites from a prior album. So hope you guys enjoy it too. All right, this one starts off with a punch to the gut. Here we go. In the sour, the tower shall fall. I love this. All the triples. Very triumphant riff here. I love this. I love that. That little, I don't know what that was, a harmonic. Now they give us a little space. Some cool kind of classical piano sounds. Neoclassical lead line almost. These drums sound so big. So awesome. I love those singing vocals in the back there too. Nice. I hadn't looked at it in a while, but that artwork for the cover there, it is a little weird. It's like a mix of kind of the Matrix, being plugged in. This dude just has all the wires around his head.
Wire.
It's almost like they're making a synthetic human or something. I'm sure that is part of the theme for the rest of the album, which does talk a lot about man versus machine and things like that. So it's interesting to look at it up close. So I first heard these guys back in probably high school or right after high school with their album, The Physics of Fire. I'd be lying if I said that it instantly hooked me and I really loved it, because I was still in the Cro-Magnon state of my metal evolutionary journey. So I didn't appreciate all of the hard work that they put into it. I just wanted breakdowns and payoffs back then. Listening to these guys, it was almost tiring sometimes, because you had to pay attention for more extended periods of time. I mean, imagine a song like Epoch of War that doesn't even have blast beats until halfway through. What is up with that? I'm listening to a Bach concerto piece at the beginning for a minute and a half. Like, you expect me to stick around? Geesh. Anyway, after growing up a little bit and diving more into their lyrics, I have come to appreciate them a whole lot more and understand that they are making some really cool music. And there was a little bit of fan service to my drum sensibilities on that album, Dichotomy. The album is called Dichotomy, and the song as well, because they had that really fat snare and kick sound that I loved, that is perfectly placed in the mix, and they've got that really cutting China sound all over the place that just makes the core kid inside me swoon. I love that stuff. So I think they've grown into having a really unique, heavy sound that has grown with them over time, and that I've grown to like more over time as well. So their main vocalist plays bass and writes all the lyrics and stuff like that too. And I'm about to unveil the best name in Christian metal music that you've ever heard. Okay, so this guy, who do you think that is?
That is Beardy.
Beardy.
Mm.
I'm gonna introduce myself.
No, just that's not his real name. That's just what I call him.
So this guy's name is Jason Wisdom. He seems like a really cool guy. He seems like he might live up to his name as well.
I'm gonna shake your hand.
And he's been so involved with the band over the years that even when he wasn't playing in the band, he wasn't touring and writing with them, I think he was taking a break for family stuff, he still wrote the lyrics and the concept for the album that they recorded and played on tour. So he's definitely been heavily involved for the whole time that the band's been around. So for the meaning of these lyrics, imagine, if you will, that the Apostle Paul set the second half of Romans 1 to technical death metal, and you will get this song 9 out of 10 times. There's a lot of direct correlations between that passage and these lyrics that are really easy to detect once you kind of think about it in that light. So let's read the relevant verses here. All right, so Romans 1, starting in chapter 18 here. For the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men, who by their unrighteousness suppress the truth. For what can be known about God is plain to them, because God has shown it to them. For his invisible attributes, namely his eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly perceived ever since the creation of the world in the things that have been made. So they are without excuse. For although they knew God, they did not honor him as God or give thanks to him, but became futile in their thinking, and their foolish hearts were darkened. Claiming to be wise, they became fools, and exchanged the glory of the immortal God for images resembling mortal men and birds and animals and creeping things. Therefore God gave them up in the lusts of their hearts to impurity, to the dishonoring of their bodies among themselves, because they exchanged the truth about God for a lie, and worshipped and served the creature rather than the Creator, who is blessed forever. Amen. And every time I read that line, I think of that in the song. It just sticks with me. So let's talk about the name Dichotomy for the song and the album. I think that there could be a couple ways that they're using that word in this context. One would be the dichotomy between creature and creator. I touched on this divide in the Era video for Isolation Blue that we did a little bit ago, where I talked about how there is an infinite divide between God and man. We are created, we are contingent on him for our very existence. Everything we think we determine is actually granted and provided for by him. God, on the other hand, has always existed. He depends on no one for anything, and he can create ex nihilo, which is another song of Becoming the Archetypes, by the way. But those words are Latin for out of nothing. So God doesn't need any raw material to start his work. He can just do whatever he wants. The other sense of dichotomy might be what they're more referring to here, is between the two different types of people in this world. So believers and unbelievers. The passage that I just read that this draws heavily from doesn't directly touch on this notion, but the rest of the Bible and the rest of this album actually talk about it a lot. So one type of person would be exactly what the song described, a sinful rebel against God. And the other type of person is the redeemed, who now loves God because God first loved him. So yeah, kind of a two-part meaning there maybe for dichotomy. Dichotomy means two. Haha, nice. Two Dichotomies. 2 times 2 is 4. All right, let's take a look at what Jason wrote here. So it starts and ends with that line, in this hour the tower shall fall, which I'm guessing is a reference to the biblical Tower of Babel and many other towers that were representative of the efforts of mankind to supplant or overpower God. And we all know what happened to Babel, as well as those other towers. Then the drums go into that awesome metal galloping beat that I talked about. It sounds like, horse gallops because it's all those triples. It's hard to make those sounds. I love this beat for many reasons. It really encapsulates a lot of that 2000s era of metalcore that I really like. Then in this first verse, they've got the rhyming pair futile speculations and fatal calculations, which sounds cool when you sing it together, which again seems to be speaking to the futile thinking and the foolish heart that Paul was describing in Romans. They even sewed their eyes shut to protect them from the light, which is hilarious, right? Because we all need the light. Hilariously sad. So many people that are being described like this just didn't want to see the light. We just hated that. It exposed what we were doing that was wrong. They also closed the doorway of their minds and barred and sealed it tight. I mean, the definition of being closed-minded, not using their critical thinking even.
That logic's airtight.
This is as biblical a description of moral foolishness that any non-inspired man has ever written, probably. And when you read these words, you might think to yourself, like, who would do these dumb things? Like, don't they know that's only hurting them? Why would you sew your eyes shut and all this? I'm not going to go into a full sermon now, but one answer to that question would be me. I was that person before Christ opened my eyes and my heart and condescended to love me while I was still raging against him. Here in the second verse, they kind of round out this view of the foolish man. Their foolish hearts were darkened, their vacant mind deceived. The lies that they exchanged for truth became all that they believed. So they're holding on to those lies with everything they have. They exchanged the incorruptible for the image of fallen man, worshipped creature rather than creator, the image rather than his hand. You didn't know that these guys could spit some bars. And like I said, I love that worship creature rather than creator. I don't know how they do that on the guitar, but it sounded sweet there. So these two verses are very clearly describing the current state of man without any intervention. So even though we are made in the image of God, still that image is marred due to our fallen hearts. And ultimately, every non-Christian religion boils down to worshiping something in creation over the God of the Bible. Anytime that we reject him, our hearts make up something else to worship because our hearts need something. We are inclined towards worship. But when it's not the God of the Bible, it might just be an abstraction of our minds, a God that we make up, or something even explicitly in creation that we see and we say, this is what is holy and good and righteous. So it's a real thing, but then we're assigning all these attributes that are not true about it.
Maybe there's some sort of animal that we could make a sacrifice to.
In the last couple sections here, we've got the coming of the end, destruction closes in, death is waiting, and all this is coming crashing down on their heads. And this seems to go really well with what is said in the last verse of Romans 1 here, which says, though they know God's righteous decree that those who practice such things deserve to die, they not only do them, but give approval to those who practice them. So these people have made their own beds, and this is when man perfects his own imperfection. That this is the outcome of that. And this is a description of judgment that everyone's going to have to face someday. None of us have ever lived up to God's righteous decree, and on top of that, we all actively desire this hellbound state that we're in, unless there's some kind of intervention. Namely, that would be Jesus and his saving work on the cross. We can't escape our sinful path and be saved, proving the other half of the dichotomy in the human race. So thanks for coming to another episode today. I hope that was enjoyable. I'll be interested to hear your thoughts as well. And I hope you have a great day, and we'll see you next time. Bye.